At exactly 6:15 p.m. every evening, the train pulls into Willow Creek Station, and for 40 years, Eleanor Whitmore has occupied the same wooden bench on Platform 2 to meet it. The locals grew up with her ritual. Some had forgotten the specifics over the decades, but the core of the story remained. Eleanor was waiting for a man who had left a lifetime ago. 40 years earlier, Eleanor was a 19-year-old newlywed. Her husband, Thomas, was a coal miner who decided to take a 6-month contract several states away. He wanted to save enough money to buy a house with a garden for their future family. Before he left, Thomas promised he would be back before the first snow. Eleanor told him that if he was late, she would come looking for him. They laughed and agreed to the deal on a rainy morning in March. That single promise became the anchor for Eleanor's next 4 decades. The first snow fell, but Thomas didn't arrive. 6 months became 8, and the letters Eleanor expected never appeared at the railway office. Eventually, a letter arrived from the mining company. It detailed a catastrophic tunnel collapse that had killed or trapped dozens of workers. Thomas was listed among those who never returned. However, because the company failed to recover all the bodies from the rubble, Eleanor had no grave to visit and no definitive proof of his death. In psychology, this is known as ambiguous loss. Without the physical evidence of a body or a funeral, the mind often struggles to process grief, remaining trapped in a state of perpetual waiting. Because there was no grave to visit, Eleanor simply returned to the platform. She stayed there as the years passed and the town moved on around her. After the accident, their shared history splits. Eleanor's life continued on a track of perfect memory, while Thomas's reality became a blank slate. Eleanor's track was defined by her recollection of Thomas's past devotion. She told reporters that because he had waited for her every day before they were married, she intended to do the same for him. As she aged into her 60s, she projected his image onto every tall man with dark hair who stepped off the evening train, looking for the familiar walk of the man she had lost. To Eleanor, the daily trip to the station was a deliberate act of loyalty, to a connection only she could still see. While Eleanor waited, Thomas was living a life the town knew nothing about. He had survived the collapse but was found hundreds of miles away with a severe head injury. He suffered from complete retrograde amnesia, no memory of his own name, his hometown of Raven Hollow, or the wife waiting for him. For 40 years, he lived under a different name, drifting through a life that felt foreign to him. The path back to Willow Creek began with a single object he had kept in an old box of belongings. It was an old photograph of a young woman. When he turned it over, he saw 2 words written on the back: Eleanor, my home. Thomas spent the following years tracing that name through records and old maps, eventually following the trail to Willow Creek. On a freezing winter evening in the 41st year of her wait, the station was almost empty. Eleanor sat in her usual spot. An elderly man in a torn coat stepped onto the platform. He stopped when he saw Eleanor and whispered her name. Tears filled his eyes as he told her he thought he'd never find his way home. After 4 decades, the 2 parallel timelines finally met. By remaining exactly where she said she would be, Eleanor was the one constant Thomas could recognize when he finally arrived. They spent 3 years together in Willow Creek. They were no longer the young couple from Raven Hollow, but they finally planted the garden they had dreamed of 40 years prior. When Thomas passed away, Eleanor was by his side. For her, the uncertainty of the first disappearance was gone, replaced by the peace of a final goodbye. The following evening, she visited the station one last time. She told the conductor she wasn't expecting anyone anymore. The train had finally arrived. Today, a memorial at Willow Creek marks their story, reminding those who pass through that some promises take longer than a journey, but they can still be kept.